there is good stress. And the problem today with stress is that people don't know how to take them out of that stress mode. They stay in the stress mode too long. So if you're someone that is struggling with weight and you're struggling with cravings, you're not just fighting your willpower up here, you're fighting the microbiome down here. You're fighting two brains. And I don't know of too many people that can actually fight two brains. Removing the additives, removing the preservatives is the number one thing that you can do for your gut health right now.
We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated. Secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
Today we have with us Antoinette Engleke, who went from Western medicine skeptic to holistic health advocate and coach. I mean, that's quite the transition, and I am super excited to have you on here today. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
I want to jump right into what inspired your belief in that power to heal ourselves, because that's, from skeptic to believer, that's quite a swing. So I'd love to kind of dig into what inspired that.
Yeah, so about 27 years ago, I had my first daughter, and
Oh,
I was totally into Western medicine. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor, and I mean, just was really into all of that and thought that they knew it all. And my daughter was born ill, and she was on a lot of pharmaceuticals. As a matter of fact, I have the list of this. I don't know if you could see it, but this was me
oh,
writing
wow.
down all of the pharmaceuticals, and that I keep it with me now. And what times we were giving them to her and all that stuff. And she wasn't getting any better. And a friend of mine
Yeah.
at the time, and I call her my angel because she kept on me about taking her to a naturopath. And I finally, at 9 months old, took Amanda to a naturopathic doctor in Phoenix, Arizona. And within 2 weeks, she had her off of all the pharmaceuticals. She had her on herbs and on, just other things. She taught me techniques on how to know when she's possibly getting sick and how to jump on top of that before she would, actually get it, and just taught me all kinds of
Yeah.
things. I started learning under her. It was absolutely amazing. And looking back, when I look at that list of pharmaceuticals she was on, one of them has been taken off the market for killing infants and for killing
Oof.
new babies. I was like, oh my gosh, it was definitely an intervention, that an angel in my life, that,
Yeah.
and now we have a 27-year-old daughter who has two kids herself. I would not have that though. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what
Well,
started my journey.
that's amazing. And when it's so close to home like that, it really does like change how you think about things, right? Because now it's
Yeah.
affecting like your immediate life, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, it definitely. And I started working for her on the side. So because it was really hard to afford a naturopathic doctor back then. And so I started working for her after my work or doing inventory for her on the weekends. My husband did her books, and just so that we can all see her. I mean, we literally like
Yeah.
swung the pendulum. I have swung back. I do see the purpose of Western medicine. I have a little bit in the middle, more towards healing yourself and not needing the Western medicine, but when you need it, you need it. So,
Yeah, for sure. It definitely has its place. I'm a big fan of the, integrative medicine. It's is what I've been doing a lot for
right.
myself this year. It's like kind of that combination, right? Which, you know,
Right.
each has its place but
Yeah.
I think the lifestyle piece is so huge. because a lot of
Yeah.
disease or dis-ease comes from
Mhm.
our lifestyle. Whether
Yeah.
like, and you might say like, oh, I had a gene or whatever, I had a disposition, it was hereditary,
Mhm.
but also our lifestyle is what allows it to express itself, right? So there's
Right.
so much to be said about bringing all those pieces together. And I just love that that's what you're doing now.
In the past 25, 26 years now, not only learned a lot about herbs and how to extract them and all of that stuff. And I'm a
Wow.
master herbalist, but I became a Reiki master teacher. And then when I retired from corporate America, I went back to school and I got my bachelor's degree and learned so much more. And it's all, it's all coming together beautifully in how somebody can
Yeah.
learn to be able to heal themselves and not need somebody, not need, I don't want them to even need me on a long term. Let me teach you in, 7 to 12 months what you need to do. And then you go off and do it and keep
Yeah.
yourself healthy.
Absolutely. And, we talked a little bit about gut health, and I want to know, how do stress management and our own, kind of emotional intelligence and emotional awareness play into that and play into our gut health?
That's a really good question because the people don't realize how much the gut is playing into our health. We have trillions
Yeah.
of microbes and we're the host and we can live harmoniously with them. And we need to live harmoniously with them. That's part of who we
Yeah.
are. You talked earlier about genes and the host genes is minor compared to the number of genes that is in the microbiome. And so what
Yeah.
is really having more control over our health if we have more genes sitting in the microbiome? The microbiome itself needs to be balanced. It needs to, people talk about the bad microbes or the good microbes, and you need to put the good microbes in. But what they're not really hitting on is that it needs to be balanced. So there's a reason for all of the microbes that need to be living within you. There is one that I know that's out there that can cause peptic ulcers. And so science scientists went on this and doctors went on this huge rampage or whatever you want to call it to remove this microbe from the microbiome, and they almost darn well did it. But what they didn't realize is that without that microbiome, we can't digest our food properly. So we're not getting the
Mm.
nutrition out of our food. So it's not that we need to wipe it out. We need to reduce that one because if it's overgrown, it will cause the peptic ulcers, but it needs to be reduced and, more beneficial ones need to be. So it's this balance that we need to be able to achieve. And when we're talking about stress, people don't realize that 80% of our serotonin is coming from the gut. It's not coming from the brain. And
Mm.
so coming from the gut, if you don't have the right microbes in there, if you don't have a healthy microbiome, you're not producing
Yeah.
the right amount of serotonin. And so, what does that relate to in a lot of dis-ease, which would be depression, anxiety, that type of stuff can come into play. So this is where it is just so important. And the other thing people don't realize, because we were talking about stress, and so what people don't realize is that stress will imbalance that microbiome that we're talking about. And so it's crucial that we actually have the ability and that we actually start working with our stress and managing the stress. We can't get rid of the stress, but we definitely can
Yeah.
manage it.
Well, and some stress is good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Because, if you're walking across the street and, there's a car coming that you didn't see, but it's there, that your stress response is going to cause you to run and to get, so that stress response is there to save you, to save the physical body, to save the life of the physical body.
Yeah.
And so we can't ignore it. Or, let's say
Yeah.
we are starting to feel uncomfortable about a situation. We need to pay attention to our emotions, and we need to pay attention because we
Yeah.
know that we're being told something. And so if we're being told something, we need to respond appropriately. There is good stress. And the problem today with stress is that people don't know how to take them out of that stress mode. They stay in the stress mode too long. They will stay in the stress mode for days. They'll stay in it, for weeks. And let's say you have an argument with your boss, and instead of bringing yourself back to homeostasis, which is where your body is balanced, where your nervous system is balanced, instead of bringing yourself back there within 10 to 20 minutes, you're stewing on it, for a very long
Yeah.
time. And that stewing on it, you're creating this chronic stress in your body. And that's where we get that disease. So people absolutely with emotional intelligence need to learn how to move themselves from the stress response of fear, or maybe there's shame and guilt or whatever is going on, those lower frequency emotions, need to learn how to reduce the refractory period to that 10 to 20 minutes. If you think
Yeah.
about a deer that's been chased, is being chased by, a coyote, right?
Yeah.
Or a wolf or something, this deer is being chased. By the time she or he gets itself to a safe position where it's not being chased anymore, that stress response, they will get themselves back in 10 to 20 minutes to where they're back at that homeostasis. That's what we need to learn how to do. Our problem is that we have this mind that will keep us in that stress mode. So we not only need to learn how to reduce or move our feelings from the lower frequency to the higher frequency, we also need to learn how to manage our thoughts through mindfulness so that we're not constantly being triggered by those thoughts back into the stress mode. And then you're unbalancing the microbiome. So your microbiome has been imbalanced for how many days because you've been stewing on something that you really needed to get yourself back within 10 to 20 minutes. Your microbiome can handle 10 to 20 minutes of stress. It's very resilient once it's been balanced, but it's not going to be able to handle the long-term chronic stress.
Yeah. And so how would you describe to us like what the microbiome is? Like how can we easily understand that?
The microbiome is a bunch of bacteria, it's viruses, it's yeast, believe it or not. All of this just needs to be in balance. And so there's trillions of them all over the body. You have them in your nasal cavity, you have them in your mouth, you have them in your gut, they're all over the place because they're actually your first line of defense for your immune system. They're the ones that are there that when a virus is coming in, it can actually be destroyed by the good microbes that are in there and before it becomes a problem. So, but the gut is actually very, very crucial because this is where a lot of the gut microbes are producing neurotransmitters for estrogen. They're producing them for serotonin. They're producing them for our digestion, obviously. And when the microbiome becomes imbalanced, what is happening is the immune system will be triggered by this. Because what can start happening is inflammation when it's imbalanced. And when you're starting to get that inflammation, our gut lining is going to, instead of being really tight, gut lining, it'll start opening up and then particles start seeping out into the cavity, into areas that it shouldn't be. And that's triggering our immune system to come in and do something about it because it's invaders. And so we're not absorbing our nutrients because of this, what's being called today is leaky gut. So all of this happens when our microbiome is imbalanced. What people don't realize either is that the microbiome is communicating with the brain and it's communicating what it needs. So if you have an imbalanced microbiome, what it's going to start communicating is the food that it needs to survive. The food it needs is sugar and, bad salts or just too many salts, like your potato chips and stuff like that, right? It's communicating that to your brain and your brain is going, oh, is that what you need? Okay, well, let me start a craving then. And then you'll get what you need for your food. Well, we really need the microbiome to be communicating avocados. We need it to communicate, healthy fats, healthy proteins. And that's what the more beneficial ones will do. So if you're someone that is struggling with weight and you're struggling with cravings, you're not just fighting your willpower up here, you're fighting the microbiome down here. You're fighting two brains. And I don't know of too many people that can actually fight two brains, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that sounds super critical for our overall health too, like not just weight, but many things. And then, so you kind of touched on it earlier, but like tell us a little bit more about how that then, affects our emotions and our mind. Because you said, those signals actually are coming more from the gut than the brain.
The microbiome is communicating, but the main thing when it's affecting our emotions and it's affecting our thoughts is because of some of the neurotransmitters that the gut microbiome is actually responsible for. And so if you're not getting the right amount of neurotransmitters, then, oh, well, there is not something else that's really cool. Well, it's not really cold, but um, what also happens is your body can become addicted to an emotion. So if you
Mhm.
are someone who's constantly in fear, you may not even know it because it
Yeah.
becomes a state where it's familiar to you, or maybe it's
Uh-huh.
guilt, maybe it's shame, maybe it's unworthiness. Well,
Yeah.
your body and your brain is going to produce those neurotransmitters of guilt, of shame. So what's happening is the thought comes in, and then the from the thoughts, the emotion gets created. That emotion is what is that. All right, the thought comes in, the thought is going to create the neurotransmitter is going to create the emotion. And so what's happening is your body will actually, the cells of the body will actually, all of the cells of the body will actually develop the right receptors for that feeling. And
Yeah.
so when that's happening, the cells are craving that feeling. And so all the communication that's going from all the cells in your body, not just the microbiome, is we need that neurotransmitter. We need that brain. We need that. And so the brain will come up with scenarios. I don't know if you've ever just sat there and just thought of something that could scare the living daylights out of you. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Well, that's your
Yeah.
cells communicating with your brain, wanting those hormones, wanting those, so the neurotransmitters will turn into hormones that will create those feelings. And it's your body being addicted to that. And so you need to go through a whole process where you are cleansing your body, where you're cleansing not just the microbiome, but those feelings. And that's why we work with the emotional intelligence and we work with the mindfulness, because we need to start managing all of that in order to reboost the whole body. That no, you know what? I want to be feeling love. I want to be feeling peace and ease. And that's what I want my
Yeah.
body to start craving.
I love that kind of, journey and transition to that it is possible, right? Like it is possible to start making it a habit almost to feel those better and more intentional emotions for
Yeah.
our lives.
Yeah. Once you start becoming aware of the emotions that you're feeling, and once you start becoming aware of the thoughts, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts in a day. That's a lot of thoughts. And when we start to become aware of those thoughts, that's when we can start managing them.
Yeah.
It all starts with the thought. The thought creates the emotion. And then you get into the cycle that, really what created what at that point, the chicken and the egg,
Yeah.
but it does originally start with the thought. A lot of our thoughts are happening from our subconscious mind, and we're not even aware of it. People don't know
Yeah.
that our subconscious manages 90% of our day. Only 5% is sitting up front that we're actually thinking about. So if that's the case, then 95% of our thoughts are automatic thoughts from our past. We are living in our past. We're not living in the present moment where we can actually create from. So we're constantly recreating the past because our subconscious is constantly managing our thoughts. And once we start recognizing those thoughts, we go, wait a minute, no, we're not doing that. And this is where mindfulness comes in, and we teach how to allow a thought to just pass along without the feeling coming into play.
So how do we start to balance that and balance our
So,
microbiome?
oh yeah, the best way to balance the microbiome is going to be the first thing to do is to stop eating the additives and preservatives. Those do so
Mm.
much damage to the microbiome. It is not friendly at all to the beneficial microbes in there. So really, really pay attention to the food that you're eating. If you are picking something up from the center of the grocery store, look at that label and see what's in it. If you can't pronounce some of the words, look it up and find out what it is. Usually,
Yeah.
if I can't pronounce something, I'm going to stay away from it.
Yeah.
So any more than 5 ingredients is probably not good for you. So those are some things to look at. I'm not saying that anybody needs to go 100% organic, but you might want to look at there's the Dirty Dozen, that you could just Google that, the Dirty Dozen, look at that and see which ones you really need to go organic, because they're so dirty that it's really unhealthy for you. So those are some of the first things that you want to do, but you also want to be able to, because possibly there's been a lot of unhealthy eating going on for a while, you may have that leaky gut and don't even know it. It may not have turned into the autoimmune disease yet, or it may not have turned into the celiacs, or because it could get into some pretty nasty diseases.
Yeah.
But you still most likely have that leaky gut. And so you need a program that is a nutritional program that's reducing the inflammation and that's getting on top of the healing of your gut lining. A lot of times that is through herbs. And, to be for me, it is being a master herbalist. I won't, but, being able to heal that gut lining, bring the inflammation down. You also want to get off of allergen foods. When you're getting off the additives and preservatives, get off of all the allergen foods too, because you really don't know what's causing issues for you. So for instance, for myself, I didn't know gluten was causing an issue. I don't have celiacs, but when I went
Yeah.
through the whole program and I put gluten back in, I was sitting on my couch and I couldn't think. It was like this huge fog was over my head. And I was just sitting there going, and I didn't even know what to do next. My husband's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I can't even think. What am I supposed to be doing today?
Wow.
It was just overwhelming for me. And so, bam, cut that right back out again. That doesn't happen to me anymore. So I would have never thought I was allergic to, or I don't know if it's an allergy or if it's just what it would be considered, but it's definitely a negative response that I have to gluten. So, getting rid of the gluten at first, and then you slowly add them back in to see what's affecting you and what's not affecting you. What can you keep in your diet?
Okay.
There's a lot of foods that are anti-inflammatory. Some of the diets are pretty good with that are out there. I'm thinking about the keto diet. It can start you on a path of anti-inflammation. The paleo
Okay.
diet is known for its autoimmune effects, for its positive effects and helping people with autoimmune diseases. So I would highly suggest paleo if you're already exhibiting, those diseases. I do have a microbiome plan myself that does all of the rebalancing, and it does go through a keto type. It goes through a paleo type. It's not, exact, but it's close to it. And it adds the prebiotics and probiotics when you're supposed to add them. You don't want to add them too early because if you still have leaky gut, you're really not doing anything. You're wasting your money. So wait until we know that you've got the gut is healed and everything, the inflammation is down. Now let's do that. But that's one of the things to do. But you also need to learn the emotional intelligence, and you need to learn how to move your emotions from the lower frequency to the higher frequency, to the love, ease, gratitude. And then you also need to learn how to start managing those thoughts so they can stop creating those lower frequency emotions. So,
Yeah.
but it is a 3-step process. And that's why my program is called Heal Your 3 Brains.
Yeah. Which I love that because when we first were talking, I was thinking like literally like the parts of our brain,
The parts,
not like
yeah.
gut and body. And I just thought that was so cool. So the process is the same whether or not you're already dealing with like leaky gut, inflammation, health issues. The process would really be the same for like healing or getting that balanced.
Yeah, the process is definitely the same. And once you
Okay.
learn how to do it, then you don't need a coach anymore. You'll be able to keep yourself
Okay.
because you will
Yeah.
know, you become more aware of what your body is doing, and you become more aware. Well, wait a minute, what did I just eat? You're more aware of your emotions, your thoughts. And so you can start managing all of this stuff, and then your health will start improving.
Okay, that's awesome. And can you tell us a little bit more about the significance that the vagus nerve plays in kind of that, gut brain communication going on?
Yeah, of course. So the vagus nerve is super highway to the brain. And this is how the microbiome actually communicates with the brain, is through this superhighway. So it's the vagus nerve, it's electrical impulses that are being sent up. And so it's those electrical impulses that the microbiome is using to trigger the brain, because the brain is the electrical. So the heart is the second brain. So the gut, the heart, and then the brain itself. The heart is where we express our emotions from. And the heart
Yeah.
actually communicates with the brain in 4 different ways. One of them is the vagus nerve. So both the gut and the heart are communicating with the brain using this superhighway. And it is fast. It is like, milliseconds. And the brain knows exactly what the gut wants, know exactly what the heart wants. And it's going to do it. It's going to do what it's being asked to do. So we want to make sure that the ask is the right ask.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So.
And I know you do some breath work things. Is there a
Yeah.
technique that you could teach us that would help with stress management as well to kind of add to that whole picture?
Yeah, absolutely. So the expression of the emotions, what's happening when we're feeling the lower frequency emotion is our autonomic nervous system. I don't know how much you want me to explain about the autonomic nervous system, but there's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic side. The sympathetic is the one that's your fight, flight, and freeze. That's being triggered when you're feeling the fear, the shame, the pain. The parasympathetic side is the one that's supposed to bring us back to homeostasis. And
Yeah.
so it's not the one that you want triggered all the time. You don't want it always on. That would be depression.
Yeah.
All right. So the parasympathetic is there to balance us back and bring us back into the middle. What breath
Yeah.
work does is breath work is going to, when you're breathing in, the sympathetic is actually being engaged. And then when you're breathing out, the parasympathetic is being engaged. When you're breathing
Yeah.
shallow, the parasympathetic really doesn't get activated as much as the sympathetic when you're breathing really
Yeah.
shallow. So we need to deep breathe, especially when we're in a stressful situation. And the best one that I start all my clients off with is the belly breath, the diaphragmatic breathing is,
Yeah.
what it's called. And so I instruct them not to hold your breath. People have been taught to hold your breath. I don't have people when they're doing breath work hold their breath until and unless you want to learn meditation, then there's a purpose for holding your breath and creating pressure inside the body. So I don't want that pressure being created inside the body. So it is a smooth inhalation of a count of 5 and then an exhalation of a count of 5, breathing both through your nose. And so, and the belly breath, this is not moving. And so how I teach people is put your one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. And it's easier to know how you're doing it if you're lying flat on the floor or on your bed. And so I always tell people to practice this before you get up in the morning or right before you go to sleep. It's also going to help to turn on that motion of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic side, because that is the balance, the count to 5 and the count to 5. That's the balance that you want to be able to have within your system. And so when you're laying down and you're breathing, you want your belly to be coming out. So I'm going to stand up a little bit, but when you're doing it, you're breathing in, so only this hand is moving here. This one is not. Now, this
Yeah.
one will move at the very end, just because you're filling your whole lungs and you're filling them from the bottom up. When we do all this shallow breathing, we're just filling our lungs from, like here up. We're not utilizing the whole set of the lungs, which isn't good either. So we really need to be doing
Yeah.
this diaphragmatic breathing a lot. And so an inhale of 5 and exhale of 5, and just do that for about 3 minutes, and it'll actually calm the nervous system down for you. So that's really important. Another thing that people can do that I really advise that people do is if you're in a situation where, let's say you're getting yelled at by your boss or there's some kind of confrontation going on, start the deep breathing so that you can balance out the system. But when you get away from that situation, what I tell people to do is immediately bring something into your thought about, maybe like one thing that I bring into my thought was when I went to go visit my grandkids and my granddaughter came running into my arms. And I think about that, and that just brings me so much joy, so much happiness. Immediately think about something that can get your emotions from that fear and anxiety. So what situation will do that for you? It doesn't mean you're not going to flip back into, that jerk face or whatever. It doesn't mean that you're not going to flip back into thinking about, what happened. But as soon as you do, bring back the more pleasant one to try
Yeah.
and bring yourself, and then just keep doing that. And don't badger
Okay.
yourself. Don't be mad at yourself. Don't judge yourself,
Yeah.
because at first it's harder to do it because your
Yeah.
body is so used to, playing this game with you and taking you down these rabbit
Yes.
holes, that it's going to want to
Right.
continue doing that.
Yeah.
So just be gentle with yourself and just think of something that makes you happy.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
and I'm so grateful that you're here today. What would you say is the one thing that we should all go do after this episode to go improve our own gut health?
To improve the gut health, the one thing that you really need to do is go through your pantry and remove
Mhm.
all of those foods that are not doing your gut justice. Is
Yeah.
the biggest thing you could do. Now, if you have a family and like my husband, he loves his potato chips. Okay, I just stay away from those, on
Yeah.
that shelf or
Yeah.
whatever. And he knows that because I love chocolate, so he knows if he brings chocolate in the house, he needs to hide it from me. So, but you go through and really decide, even for your whole family, this is not something that's just for you, but your whole family really needs to learn how to eat properly. Removing the additives, removing the preservatives is the number one thing that you can do for your gut health right now.
Absolutely. And I know that can be hard too, because, we want to be able to do it in a way that's sustainable for us, right? And
Yeah.
I know sometimes, certain things aren't always accessible. And, being in the US, there
Right.
are a lot of additives and a lot of what we purchase and have
Hmm.
available to us. So I think being realistic and in like what's truly
Right.
sustainable, but also, like you said, like start in the kitchen. I think that's a great
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, the microbiome is very resilient. So once you have balanced it, once you have actually gone through a program that is balancing it, if you're going on a trip and you're going to, I don't know, on a cruise, right? And they have all this food.
Yeah.
If you find that you don't have any major allergies and you can have gluten and you can do, go ahead
Yeah.
and have fun. Restricting
Yeah.
yourself 100% is only going to make you not want to do it. So go ahead and
Right.
have fun. And then there is a reboot that you can do that is only 2 weeks when you get back home. So in 2 weeks, it'll be
Okay.
rebalanced because of that resilience that it
Yeah.
has. So you're not going
Yeah.
to hurt it with a week of,
Yeah.
or even 2 weeks of the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I'll probably still have cookies. Holidays.
Yeah. Thank you so much for, teaching us about our three different brains and how to really leverage our gut health in order to have so many other aspects improved in our life, which includes our mind, our emotions, our health. So I love the holistic, approach to that. So thank you so much for coming on today and was so glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for welcoming me on. It was a lot of fun. So maybe we could do this again and concentrate more on one of the other brains.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world, and as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well-being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.